Florida faces a matter of life and death as Hurricane Milton closes in. Florida residents are rushing to finish emergency preparations, or just leave, as Hurricane Milton races toward landfall on the heavily populated Tampa Bay. Milton is currently a Category 5 storm, packing ferocious winds of up to 165 miles per hour, 270 kilometers per hour. It is expected to hit with full force on Wednesday night, less than 2 weeks after the state was struck by the devastating Hurricane Helene. President Joe Biden warned people in Florida on Tuesday to leave their homes as a matter of life and death, while the state undertakes its largest evacuation effort in years. A Category 5, that is like a giant tornado coming at you, one resident of the Gulf Coast city of Bradenton told the BBC from the hotel that he has evacuated to in Kissimmee. "I wouldn't want to be there," said Gerald Lemus. "This will be a life-changing storm no matter where it hits." Mr. Lemus, who has lived in Bradenton his entire life, said he has never evacuated for any previous storm. But he decided he has to for the safety of his 8-year-old daughter. "I just looked at her and I couldn't traumatize her to something like this," he said on Tuesday night. "It's a gamble we weren't willing to make." ML Ferguson has been struggling to rebuild her home in Anna Maria, Florida, after it was severely damaged last month by Helene, a powerful Category 4 hurricane when it hit. "This one is going to be way worse than Helene," she said on the phone while stalled in highway traffic out of the city. "My car is totaled, we all were laid off of our job, and my belongings were ruined. After this storm hits, I will officially become homeless." Governor Ron DeSantis said on Tuesday that Florida had prepared dozens of shelters outside of evacuation zones to help house residents left stranded in the wake of the monster storm. Long queues at petrol stations formed in South Florida, as some stations began running out of fuel. China Perkins told the BBC she is remaining in Tampa, where she lives in a newly constructed home outside the mandatory evacuation zones. "I don't think people really understand how much planning has to go into a decision like this," she said, adding that she has 2 large Great Danes. "There's so much traffic and barely any gas available right now. People are running out of gas on the highway." DeSantis said that petrol was being trucked to stations, and electric vehicle charging stations also were deployed along roadways to ease the evacuation. Tampa resident Steve Christ spoke to the BBC while boarding up the windows of his dentist office. "Everyone's gone. I've never seen it so quiet," he said. Speaking at the White House on Tuesday, President Biden said the storm could be one of Florida's worst in a century. "Evacuate now, he told Florida residents. The White House canceled Biden's planned visit to Germany and Angola in order to oversee preparations for Milton and ongoing recovery from Hurricane Helene. Less than 2 weeks ago, Hurricane Helene, the deadliest mainland storm since Katrina in 2005, pummeled the U.S. southeast, killing at least 225. Hundreds more are missing. At least 14 of those deaths were in Florida, where 51 of 67 counties are now under emergency warnings as Milton approaches. The National Hurricane Center has warned people to brace for strong winds that could potentially send debris still on the streets from Helene to destructively fly through the air. Rainfall totals could reach highs of 15 inches 38 centimeters, and coastal areas could see storm surges of 10 to 15 feet 3-4.5 m. Hurricanes are categorized based on wind speed. Category 3 and higher are considered major because of their potential for damage and loss of life, according to the National Weather Service. Counties began issuing evacuation orders on Monday, with tolls suspended on roads in western and central Florida. School closures in several counties began on Tuesday. Airports in Tampa and Orlando announced they would be suspending flight operations until the storm passes. Parts of Pinellas County, where at least a dozen people were killed by Helene, were placed under evacuation orders on Monday. The National Hurricane Center, NHC, expects Milton to make landfall as an extremely dangerous hurricane in the U.S. state of Florida on Wednesday night, local time. It could strike near the city of Tampa, whose wider metropolitan area has a population of more than 3 million people. Forecasters are warning of torrential rain, flash flooding, high winds and possible storm surges, which occur when water moves inland from the coast. It comes as the U.S. government warns that cleanup efforts could take years after Hurricane Helene. Over 12,000 cubic yards of debris have been removed in Helene-affected areas of Florida in less than 2 days, officials said. Hundreds of roads remain closed, hampering efforts to send aid to hard-hit communities. As well as in Florida, deaths were recorded in Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee and Virginia, and the worst-hit state, North Carolina. Biden has so far approved nearly $140 million, £107 million, in federal assistance.